My name is Andy Zloniak, and I'm manager of on-ice player development and programming here at the RINK Training Center.
And I'm Colin Shirley. I'm program coordinator here on the player development side.
I mean, when I was age 4 to 6, it was a lot of public skating at the community centers. Not much organization. There definitely wasn't any type of skill development, or I don't even know if there was learn to skate. I think the learn to skate back then was public skating at the community centers, and there was sort of just guards going around making sure we weren't running into people. So it's definitely changed a little bit since I've been a little gaffer.
Yeah, I think similar to me. Growing up, Saskatoon is very similar to Andy's experience, right? Public skating was the big thing. Like, I don't think I held a hockey stick until I was 6, 7 years old, had any hockey equipment on. So for me, it was very similar, getting out to the outdoor rink, skating around, just kind of getting my bearings on my skates. So I think a lot has changed looking at hockey and U7 programs now. So I think today, like I said, it's a lot different than what it used to be. So I think the biggest thing, you come to our program, obviously getting out of that learn to skate, looking for the next part of your pathway, next part of your journey. I think the biggest thing is getting into that hockey gear and making the transition just from skating to putting on the gear, putting on the shin pads, the gloves, having a stick in your hands. So a big part of what we do is getting those kids comfortable, getting them in gear, and getting kind of that outside of that comfort level more into the hockey aspect of skating and just the next part of their hockey journey.
Yeah, and like Colin said, like when we were younger, we probably didn't grab a stick until we were 6, but now you're seeing how the game has changed, where players are starting earlier. Some kids want sticks in their hands when they're on the ice at 3 or 4 years old. So having the opportunity to provide that to players, if they're capable and they want that and they have the passion, I think that's something huge for our U7 programs. Like the foundation, not only of like the general scope of hockey, but like something that me and Charles were talking about earlier, it's the X's and the O's on the board. It's the hockey listening position. It's the hockey stance. It's literally drawing a C on the board and asking the kids, what does a C mean? And half of them don't know. Well, it's the coach. What's an X? That's a player. What's a dot? That's a puck. So like little things like that where we can look at the board, and basically doing that every session. When kids are 3, 4, 5 years old, 6 years old, you need repetition. So doing that, having them understand that, basically every session is a review. Throughout that level, I think the foundations of everything from X's and O's to knowing what an inside edge is, knowing how to stand on your toes, knowing how to stand on your heels, resorting back to your hockey stance as the foundation, I think is one of the biggest things that we focus on in our intro to hockey.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think the one thing I was talking about too, getting a stick in your hands, right? So when we were younger, it was out there skating, you're kind of trying to find your balance. A big part of what we do when you have your stick, you can use that as a balance tool, right? So getting a stick in these players' hands, it's just kind of a different aspect of balance, how you'd use that stick throughout the game. The other thing I look at, kind of like what you said about the X's and O's, our intro to hockey program is educational, right? So we're teaching them about the game of hockey, things they're not going to be taught. Right? If you come into your first year of hockey and coach is drawing on the board, well, what does that mean? You're a step behind. So for us, intro to hockey gives them that education. Then they're ready to rock when they get into their teams and their different associations. Kind of gives them that step in the right direction towards that hockey.
Yeah, and it's all little things. Like we get kids who joined our programs at U9 later on in life, and they haven't been to a rink program, and they don't know how to hold their stick properly. So that's a huge thing that within intro to hockey, just literally how to hold their stick properly, how to carry the puck with holding your stick properly, little things like that. And then educating the kids, educating the parents, maybe their stick's too long, maybe it's not the right fit, maybe they're right-handed when they're shooting left. So it's like little things like that where we can nip it right in the beginning of their foundations, their fundamentals, and they get to grow with those foundations through the rink programs and all the way up. I tell players all ages this, that no matter what level you play at in hockey, if you are better on your skates, if you can balance better, if you can control the puck better, you're gonna have more fun, right? No matter where you're playing, beer league or AAA or wherever, if you're a better hockey player, you're gonna have more fun. You're gonna play with people who are having more fun, right? I'm not saying you're not gonna have fun at lower levels, but you will have more fun if you're standing on the ice more and not falling as much. So those foundations, I think, carry a huge toll in players' development as they move through the ranks. And just like we can almost like spot a rink trained player. Like we've gone to satellite communities, and over the years we've built relationships and skill developments through them. and then they come into our facility or we see them out in public with their own team and they're the only rink trained player, it's like, whoa, that really paid off. You can see the difference between a rink trained player from the foundations up to players who haven't trained at the rink. So it's something special to see for us that is working, right? So it's fun.
Yep.
Makes
Yeah, I
our
couldn't
job
agree more.
exciting.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, I think comfortability and confidence is a big thing about our intro program. So like Z said, every session we're reviewing what we worked on, right? So it's not like we're hammering away, but it's friendly reminders. Okay, this is how we hold our stick. This is how we get in our listening position. This is hockey stance. Every single session, these kids are hearing this and they're gaining that confidence and gaining more comfortability on the ice. And I think that's to be said even with the hockey equipment, right? It's like if you go show up to your first hockey practice, all new equipment, you're gonna feel uncomfortable. It doesn't feel good. There's a big difference of skating with your skates and helmet on than that full equipment. So I think that's something to be said, just building that confidence level. And as Z mentioned before, if we look at a player in U7, skating and skills, for example, who was in that intro before, we see a large difference than if it's a player that's right into that U7 program and hasn't gone through the introduction in terms of X's and O's on the board, in terms of how to hold your stick, in terms of confidence and comfortability on the ice.
I think from the foundation standpoint of our U7 programs and when we're watching players develop through their higher levels, I think one thing for sure is their skating abilities. I think that's one thing that we hammer with our U7 programs. There's always a review on the skating, a lot of balance, a lot of edges, inside and outside edges. So that's one thing. I think like for me personally, puck control, I think watching players as they develop, you start to see it around the older ages where they start overhandling the puck. So at a young age, trying to develop players and make them understand that it's important to have good hands and be able to stick handle, but it's also important to know when and how to use it. So that's one thing that I feel like from the rink standpoint, those two sort of pillars along with shooting and everything else that we offer, I think that sort of goes a long way in the development of our players that we train here.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, just to piggyback on that, I think another aspect as well would just be how kids act when you blow the whistle, right? So in our intro programs, we teach the kids come into the pile, stop or slow down. We work on stopping throughout our intro program, grab a knee, listen to the coach, right? If you haven't been through that process, when we blow the whistle, kids are stopping and they're looking around. They don't know really what's going on. So it's very simple things, but I think it goes a long way in terms of development and just being ready for that next level. Yeah, so I think just to come right out of the gate, I don't think age is something, right? It's a U7 program, so I don't think age can really be taken into account, right? So if your child's 6 years old, it's like, oh, they need to be in U7 skating and skills. I don't think that's the case at all, right? So if they're unfamiliar with hockey, they're still learning, they haven't been in equipment, they haven't gone through that educational aspect, intro hockey is the place for you. Right? So I think that's something to keep in mind. I don't think people need to get caught up in the age. That's why we have a wide range in our U7 programs. So I think the biggest thing, again, intro to hockey is educational. It's learning the game. We do go through skills, as Z said, skating, one leg balance. We introduce stopping, puck control, a little bit less of that handling, more carrying the puck and feeling comfortable on the ice. But I think it's just different levels where age sometimes gets brought into it where it shouldn't be factored in as much.
Yeah, and like we do run report cards essentially from our intro and recommendations to which program would be next. Again, it's not really age centered. Once you branch out and we've been recommended to U7 skating and skills or skills to game, essentially it becomes only a recommendation where the parents can choose. In skating and skills, they know they're going to be getting a full session on a skating or skills topic. So whether it's power skating one day, passing or puck control the next day, it's full skills. Whereas the skills to game portion or program would be half skills and then half gameplay. And then within that U7 skating or skills to game program, they're going to get even more education on things like face-off setup, offsides, penalties, cycling, little things that they can incorporate within their games and know those skills before they even get to that level where they need to know them. I think it's all sort of family preference, depending on how many kids you have. But I think for the most part, our U7 programs, once people realize sort of how beneficial it is for their players' development, I think it's second to none compared to Timbits and everything else that's offered within the city or the province. So I think parents are starting to supplement our programs because of that. Realistically, our U7 programs for the most part run the weekend, so it does compete with the timeframes of those other programs. But you have to understand that within those programs, they probably aren't getting half of what they get within our programs, right? So everything we sort of discuss, it's sort of, do you want to decide to supplement, or do you want to go full on be RINK trained, right? And that's a decision for a parent. And I know I'm going to be going through it soon. I have a 3.5-year-old and 2 1-year-olds coming up, so I'm going to have to be making these decisions soon. But yeah, I think schedule, how in hockey you are, how engulfed you are, how new to the game you are, and then obviously, as Cheryl's mentioned, like how comfortable your child is on the ice and how much you want to push them. Will be deciding factors for where you want to put your child at that age. And our intro programs, our U7 programs have evolved over time. And that's something that our full-time staff, our full-time coaches, we take pride in. The game is always changing. At that level, not so much. It's very fundamental, foundational, but we find ways to sort of evolve that in the teaching schemes and our practice plans, in ways to have fun with the kids, to not scare them away from the game if they're falling a lot, little things like that. I think the number one thing is we are full-time coaches. We're professionals at what we do. We've been doing it for years. We've played at a high level. We understand the development of young players through every sort of rank. So I think not only are our coaches going to be better than what Timbits has to offer or what other teams have to offer, I think the facility, the unique ice sheet, the coach-player ratio, everything that sort of adds up will be beneficial for everyone who sort of walks in through the doors.
And I think something to note with that too, like we said, full-time professional coaches, right? We're working in the summertime, you're working with professional guys, and we're working with junior and U18 players all the time, right? So this is what we do for a living. We do it for 40 hours a week. That's our life, right? So for us, when we see, I know for myself, I know Z's the same way, and all of us coaches, when we get to go out with an intro group or a U7 group, it's exciting, right? Because those are the players that pick up on most things, right? And they're excited to be out there. Like when you get out on the ice, all the players are coming up to you. What are we working on today? They're excited to be there. And that's a good feeling for me, right? Because that's why I do it. I love being out there with the U7 programs and the intro. And yeah, just like we said, we love being here. We're professional coaches, and that's what we do. So there's something to be said with throwing your kid out there and letting them play a game. There's something else to be said with development, teaching them the proper fundamentals, techniques, mechanics in a fun environment, right? Letting them play games, like we said, with the skills to game, it works on a bit of both, skating and skills, more skills focused. But everything we do, we want the kids to have fun. U7 is that range where it's, if you're not having fun, are you going to continue playing? I don't know if you will, right? So everything we do is based on development and enjoyment of the game.
I think the unique ice sheet that we have, holding our U7 programs on there, is uncomparable to any other development program because we have coach-player ratio. With that coach-player ratio, we're not spread out on a full sheet. We're within 160 feet. We're always within basically 2 stick lengths of a player, constant contact within a player, constant teaching. So I think just that alone, you have that voice in your ear with a child. They're going to hear it going down the ice, then they're going to review it coming back. Then they're going to hear something else going down the ice, then they're going to review it coming back. So you look at that, repetition is the best way to get better at something. Repetition with demonstration, with explanation, and then motivation from the coaches. And it's always there. It's basically, you can't get away from the coaches on the ice, which some kids want to get away from the coaches, but I mean, we try our best not to allow that.
Yeah, and I think just like a cool aspect of it when we think about the skills to game, right, getting into that game situation, the way we like to compare it is imagine taking the pro group and putting them on an open lake and letting them play, because that's what it would be like for the U7s on the full sheet, right? So now we're taking the training sheet, smaller sheet, that simulates the full sheet for those pros, right? So at that early age, they're kind of understanding how fast hockey happens, right? How much time you have with the puck. 3-on-3, we're out there on the training sheet. There's a little bit more room, but you still have to make plays quick, and understanding kind of the timing of that game If you're out on the full sheet, you're going to be skating up and down, you'll be tired.
Picking
And it's tough to understand really what the timing looks like and how the game is actually played.
Little hockey habits to me is just like Cheryl said earlier, is when you blow the whistle, the kids are coming into the pile quickly. So when in the beginning of a program, let's say we have a 19-week program, and the coach says the first whistle, everyone comes in, maybe 2 or 3 don't come in. And then the next time one kid doesn't come in. And the next time all kids are coming in, you build that consistency. So that's like, to me as a parent now, that's money, because if you're wasting time where kids are gallivanting around, drinking too much water, little things like that, seconds add up to minutes, minutes add up to whatever over a 19-week program, to us as professionals at the rink, that's time wasted, that's money wasted. We want, when parents are here, when kids are here, we want everything to be the best. The standards that we set, our coaches are low time in our huddles, we're quick with our reps, little things like that. So we want to make sure the players, when they're here, they're getting the most reps. So little hockey habits like coming into a pile, holding your stick properly, not fooling around a line, listening habits, all little things that are sometimes tough for 4, 5, 6-year-olds. We try to, for the 50 minutes or however long we have them, try to hammer it home with them, try to build a habit, try to build little details within those habits. And then eventually we have them for 19 weeks. They have those habits in them for the next season with their next coaches. They hear a whistle with their next coach, they come straight in. Coach is like, whoa, you must be rink trained. Something like that. That's a small little habit that we take pride in, right? So
yeah, and it's something we talk about too, like even with our pros and with our athletes in the summertime, it's habits, details, and progressions, right? So when that player goes out, when they spend a summer with us, they go out to their junior camp or wherever that may be. Okay, they know, look at these habits, look at these details. Yeah, they're a rink trained athlete. We want to do that with every single age group that we have. Doesn't matter if you're U9, U11, U7, we want to instill those habits and those details. So when they move on to their next team or their first team, coach goes, whoa, okay, where would they get their training? They're a rink trained athlete. Okay, well, maybe that's what I should look into and look to put my child or my player into. Because I think those are things that you don't forget, right? Those are things that are instilled in you and that you carry on as you continue on your hockey journey. And I think it's invaluable. Like that's kind of what that's what you need if you want to get to the next level and continue playing hockey and progressing as you go. So I would just say, I think the biggest thing for me is just to see the value of every program, right? I think sometimes the U7 programs get overlooked, right? Intro to hockey is one that may get overlooked, but I just think, kind of to recap on what we've talked about the whole time, is that these values and details are something that you don't want to pass up, right? These are something that you learn at a young age and you're going to have those with you as you go. Right? So if we skip and we come in, not saying it's bad, if you come at U9, you haven't heard about the rink, that's what we're still working on. We don't stop working on our details and habits as we grow. The younger we are able to get that comfortability, that confidence on the ice, those details, those habits, the better, right? And I think that's something that you continue to grow. Okay, you had a year, you did really well with you did listening, you had your habits down, details, we don't have to worry about it anymore. No, that's not how it works, right? You continue to work on those things as you move on, which we always do. I just think the sooner we get that down, then we can move on to different things, right? Then we can focus more on our development, our mechanics, our fundamentals. That's the base, right? So once we have that base, then we can move on and start to progress.
Yeah, I'll agree with that.